Perfect. Okay, good. We get to get rolling sooner than later. Today's topic is resilience. Okay, so resilience isn't just a buzzword, it's actually a survival skill, not just for creatives, but for everyone. But specifically, I'll be talking about creatives because this is Thriving Creative Podcast. The creative path is full of twists and turns, unexpected detours. One day you're riding high on inspiration and positive feedback, and the next you're questioning everything you've ever made. Sound familiar? Happens to me quite often. In this episode of The Thriving Creative, we're diving into what it takes to build creative resilience, the emotional flexibility to bounce back from setbacks, navigate the uncertainty of creative life, and continue showing up for your art with curiosity and courage. Whether you're navigating rejection, creative blocks, or self-doubt, this episode will help you cultivate the mindset and habits that keep you grounded, even when things get rough. Welcome back to the Thriving Creative, where we explore what it means to thrive as a working artist, emotionally, creatively, and financially. Creative work is rewarding, but it's rarely smooth sailing. Whether it's the sting of rejection, a frustrating creative block, or the comparison trap, we all face moments that make us question why we do what we do. The difference between creatives who keep going and those who burn out often comes down to one thing: resilience. Resilience isn't about avoiding discomfort. It's about building the inner strength to keep creating even when things feel uncertain. In today's episode, I'll share what creative resilience really means. It's not about toughness. The emotional patterns many artists experience, proven strategies to build your creative resilience, and personal stories, including a few from my own journey that show how growth and setbacks often go hand in hand. So let's dive in. So creative resilience isn't just about developing a thick skin. In fact, it's not about that at all. It's the ability to adapt to change, process feedback without spiraling, recover from rejection with your sense of worth intact, and stay connected to your creative vision, even when results aren't immediate. It's emotional flexibility, not emotional numbness. It's knowing how to comfort yourself after a tough critique and how to celebrate your wins without downplaying them. Resilience doesn't mean avoiding difficult emotions. It means learning how to hold space for them without losing your momentum. Let's talk about the emotional roller coaster of creative work. So, creative careers are emotional roller coasters. If you've had any experience with it so far, or you're looking into it, you will soon find out, or you've already experienced that up and down emotional roller coaster aspect of being an artist. So one minute you're energized by a new idea or opportunity, and the next you're doubting whether you have anything worthwhile to say, whether anyone would be interested, and whether it's even quality work at all. I mean, these ebbs and flows of confidence and self-worth are really pretty phenomenal. And it happens to everyone. If you are experiencing this and you think it might just be you, you're the only person that questions yourself and your work, you're totally wrong. I will assure you, I am part of that club, and most other artists who will be listening to this or watching this later will probably agree. So bear in mind that if you have those feelings, it's not a sign that you're failing. It's actually part of the process. It's just part of the process. For years, I've worked with creatives in my coaching, in my workshops, and in the Invisibility Lab, a project that explores what it means to feel seen and unseen. Through these conversations, one truth became clear. Emotional resilience doesn't come from avoiding vulnerability, but from developing tools to navigate it. Really. Creatives who learn to sit with discomfort, reflect on their process, and separate their worth from external validation are the ones who build sustainable careers. So, how do we do that? Here are some strategies to build creative resilience. Here are some practical ways to build emotional resilience so you can thrive through the inevitable ups and downs. First, name your triggers. What types of feedback or experiences trigger your self-doubt or even a shutdown kind of response? Naming these patterns makes them easier to manage. The first step to changing anything is noticing what those triggers are, what the circumstances are that bring them about, and just simply noticing them. Number two, reframe rejection. Rejection isn't personal, it's information. And I've talked about this in other episodes of the show. Rejection isn't personal, it's just information. When you shift from what's wrong with me to what can I learn from this, you start using setbacks as stepping stones because there's always something to be learned from every experience, the good ones and the bad ones, and probably more to learn from the bad ones, the ones where we feel like a little bit uncomfortable about the situation. So what can I learn from that? Number three, you can develop a recovery ritual. What does that look like? Well, after a disappointment, you can have a ritual that helps you release the experience. For example, that might be journaling, it might be taking a walk, or talking it through with a creative peer. That's definitely super helpful. And I put those kinds of breaks into projects, whether it's you know, uh, whether I'm getting feedback or not. It's practice. I pop in there whenever I feel like a lot of energy being held in my body, and I just want to release it. And so, just going out for a walk or just journaling about it for a while, or sometimes talking about it can really help sort of dissipate that energy and bring me back to center. Okay, number four, this is an important one. I talk about this often. Celebrate the progress, not just the outcomes. Resilience grows when you notice your own creative stamina, the times you showed up and experimented or took a risk, regardless of the result. That builds that muscle of resilience, but of the stamina, right? The willingness to show up, the willingness to take risks and to experiment and explore is such a great feeling and is so important because if we avoid that, that muscle gets much weaker and then we have much less capacity for dealing with challenges, but also like if you think about it, it would also stymie your creativity, right? It would just kind of if you're always playing it safe, then you are not going up to the edges and exploring in your artwork, in your practice. And that's often where the most incredible work happens, either in terms of the process of the work or even the results, like how the work ends up looking, but especially feeling like that excitement when you're exploring a new idea in your work and taking risk. And allowing yourself to do that is super important because who wants to just read all the safe stuff, right? Or see all the normal pretty stuff? Like how about what happens when we see something that's really unexpected or really new or has a new point of view, right? That's pretty exciting. So number five is build a support system. Uh, Resilience definitely is not a solo act. Surround yourself with other creatives who understand the ups and downs. Being part of a community makes the setbacks feel more normal and a lot less lonely. I've found that, and a lot of my clients talk about this, that when they are disappointed by some situation that happened in their career, some kind of setback. And they share it with people that are not in their creative community. They're just sharing it with, like, say, a family member or even their partner, if the partner is not an artist per se, that sometimes, especially those who are not super supportive of their their choice to live a creative life, then they end up not being helpful at all. Sometimes you get really fortunate and you have a partner or a friend who, whether they're a creative uh, person in their career or not, it doesn't matter. You might just be lucky enough to have a person who just always believes in you, no matter what choices you've made in terms of your career and how that might be different from theirs. You want those people in your network, your support system, the ones who believe in you 100%, no matter what you're doing. They're not judging the fact that you've chosen a creative life. They're not doubting whether you'll make it. They believe in you. And those are the people you want around you. And then the other uh, aspect of having creative friends and support around you is that they will have also experienced these ups and downs. So they're going to know where you're coming from, and they will be able to remind you that it's not always this way and that you will have ups again. And that maybe you don't have to take this particular setback so seriously, right? So that's one of the big advantages of having creative community around you, which is what I really love about the Create Collective and the community of thriving creatives that is happening there. Okay, so what else did I want to share with you? Oh, let's talk about Marina Abramović. Again, I love her work, and obviously I mention her quite often. Marina's endurance performances really pushed her and her audiences to uncomfortable limits. I mean, some of the suspense in her pieces is just like, you just hold your breath, hoping that this terrible thing doesn't happen, or just on the edge of your seat, like, what's going to happen, or how is she doing that? And it's incredible. What's remarkable isn't really just her courage during the performance, but her ability to return to the work after periods of harsh criticism and doubt. That kind of emotional stamina didn't come from avoiding vulnerability. It came from embracing it. In fact, she is super vulnerable in her work. That's often a super key element of it. Another example is Nick Cave, who I also love to talk about. I love his work. He is the multidisciplinary artist whose sound suits, those big, odd, interesting, shaped, costumey things that go over the whole body, and they make sound inside, and the whole person is kind of covered, and you would have no idea who it is. So Nick Cave's sound suits were born out of frustration and fear after the Rodney King verdict. Instead of shutting down, though, he used his grief as creative fuel, transforming vulnerability into some of the most powerful work of his career. So, creative resilience isn't about being fearless, it's actually about learning to create alongside fear and disappointment and uncertainty. And for example, today in our current US administration and early 2025, there is a lot of uncertainty happening and a lot of fear and a lot of disappointment. And I know for me, in times like this, I often question, what is the point of making art? Why are we making art? What function can it serve? And I have learned through experience, personal experience, and witnessing others and reading and research that art has so many ways that it serves us. For us, for those of us who create art, for those of us making music, making visual art, making performance, making dance pieces, that process of making alone, separate from whether anybody sees the work or hears the work, the process of making is really important for our souls. It's really important for our life, quality of life, whether anyone sees it or not. This is the process of creating something, the process of making, the process of being in the flow, of following our intuitions and our impulses and our you could call them scribbles or studies or sketches or however you want to think of them, and allowing them to unravel. And I'm thinking about that beautiful kind of sensation. I don't know if I can come up with words to describe it, but I'll try. Um, that sensation of just being like, I have no idea where this is going, but I like how I'm feeling. I like where this time is taking me. It's not very well said, but um, allowing ourselves to be in that process of making and being in that moment of creating instead of and wholly, fully, 100%, and not letting like all the other stuff get in the way, all the other noise, all the other obligations. When we can, I feel like that's when we're really touching our connection to the universe, to source, to the all that is, and our gifts that we were given when we came into this particular lifetime in this particular body. So yeah, just feel like that is incredibly important. Other functions are that art creates other ways of thinking about things for people. It helps them see or understand things differently. It also helps people, depending on the kind of work you're making, find some relief, find some sense of calm in the storm. And that is super needed in times like this. And art has a history of sharing messages that are important and lead to major important changes in the world in terms of, human rights and environmental change and these kinds of things. So art has a lot of purposes and serves a lot of purposes. So please, I hope you're not feeling guilty or bad or wrong in any way when you choose to, or you even just think about making art. It's really important. I hope you do it. Don't let anything stop you. So, really, emotional resilience isn't something you either have or you don't have. It's really a practice. It's a muscle you build every time you show up for your work, even when you're unsure how your work will be received. So I invite you to take a moment to reflect before we close up here today. What is one creative setback you've experienced recently? What's one creative setback you've experienced recently? One, I'll share one that I've had. Um, I had the opportunity to uh, spend like $100 at the art supply store. And I thought, oh, great, I'll be able to get, two or three pretty large canvases. It turns out canvases are really much more expensive now than they used to be when I was buying them, 10 or 15 years ago. And so it was more like I could only get one canvas, not even the size I wanted, right? Like actually, like the size I wanted was like closer to $200 or more than that even. So that was a big disappointment. But it wasn't the end of it, right? I mean, there are other ways to work around it. Maybe it's not an awesome example, but it's the first thing that came to my mind. Um, and then the other thing to reflect on is what's one small way you can reframe that creative setback you had, or a way that you can recover from it. Well, for me, I was just like, okay, well, that's not for me to purchase today. I'm going to use this money a different way. And I purchased some other pieces, some other materials that I really wanted. So, yeah, so you can always look for like, well, what's another way I can frame this? What little piece of good came from this? What did I learn from it? Even if it doesn't feel like anything good came from it, what did I learn from it? So this is helpful in terms of like avoiding getting stuck in the whatever the setback was, right? Or making it about you or something about you deserving or not deserving. Don't even bother going down that road. That's like totally irrelevant, not even true. You deserve it all. You deserve everything you desire. And your creativity is so important and so needed in the world. If not for us, for you. Okay. Like, even if we never get to see it, if you are making things and you are honoring this drive to be creative in whatever fashion that might take, please honor that because that is still a gift to the world. It is still you living your purpose, whether anyone else sees it or not. If you are in the state of creating and you are in a creative flow, you are serving a magnificent purpose in the world, just being who you are and who you were meant to be. Really, honestly, I believe that wholeheartedly. So, if you'd like personalized support navigating the emotional ups and downs of your creative life, I'm opening a few spots for one-on-one resilience coaching sessions this month. We'll identify your triggers, develop personalized strategies, and help you build the inner tools to keep thriving, no matter what the creative path throws your way. Details will be in the show notes on how to get one of those calls. You are not alone, and you are more resilient than you think. Thanks for joining me for this episode of The Thriving Creative. If this conversation resonated with you, I'd love for you to share it with another creative person in your life. Your work matters, your voice matters, and your ability to navigate the hard parts is part of what makes you a thriving creative. So until next time, stay curious, stay kind, and keep creating.